It's time for the whole 9 yards. Hello again, everyone. I'm Ralph Ventre. I'm here in the NEC Front Row Studios. It's time to prepare for Week 4 of the FCS schedule. Conference play kicks off this weekend. All 7 teams are in action. We have a lot to digest. Let's get right to it. We'll kick it off with the opening drive. I'll start with the non-conference portion of the Week 4 schedule, and we'll kick it off with St. Francis heading up to Albany. The Red Flash will face a CAA member for the second week in a row following last week's heartbreaking defeat at the hands of Richmond. The Red Flash led at multiple junctures during that game. They took their last lead with 1 minute and 10 seconds to go on a beautiful touchdown pass from Bear Fenimore to Zach Campbell, but they couldn't hold on as Richmond was able to drive the field and score the game-winning TD with 2 seconds remaining on the clock. It'll be key for the Red Flash to put that one behind them. Head coach Chris Valerio is guarding against a hangover at Albany.
You know, we can't be hungover on this one. I told the guys we have 24 hours to get over it because, you know, we have another tough opponent in Albany, and if we go up there hungover, it could be a long day. So we got to get over it, get healed up, heal the bumps and bruises up, and get ready to go.
Like the Red Flash, Albany enters this game at 1-2 overall. Its win was over MEAC member Morgan State, and the Great Danes offense seemed to click in that Week 3 victory. Quarterback Vincent Testaverde and receiver Dev Holmes had quite a day. They'll pose a test for a stout Red Flash defense that is allowing only 4.1 yards per play, and when it comes to defending the run, the Flash allow only 2.6 yards per carry. Despite his defense's early season success, Chris Valerio knows this one won't be easy when the Red Flash visit former NEC member Albany in the New York capital.
Yeah, another great challenge. You know, they're hitting their stride. They're getting in rhythm. You know, they got 2 new coordinators, so he's getting them guys in sync. They're getting ready for the push for their conference also. So, you know, it's going to be a great test for us.
Moving out of the New York State capital region, we head down to the city and we land in the Bronx, where Central Connecticut will take on Patriot League member Fordham. It's the second straight week that CCSU will face a New York City inhabitant. The Blue Devils fell at home to Ivy Leaguer Columbia in Week 3. On Saturday, they'll try to rebound against a Fordham team that's looking for its first win of the season. These 2 teams battled to a 38-31 final last year in New Britain, but that was before the 2017 Blue Devils kicked it into high gear and pieced together 8 straight wins en route to the Northeast Conference crown. The defending NEC champion hoping to score a road win over Patriot League member Fordham, so be sure to log on to FordhamSports.com for live streaming information of this Saturday tilt. We move way west for our final non-conference matchup on the Week 4 schedule, all the way out to Hawaii. Duquesne will face an FBS member for the second time this season when they travel to meet the Rainbow Warriors. Both teams played in the Eastern time zone during Week 3. Hawaii, which had been 3-0, suffered its first loss of the season, a 28-21 setback at Army. Meanwhile, in Pittsburgh, Duquesne was putting the finishing touches on a perfect 3-0 homestand. The Dukes jumped ahead of Dayton by a 31-13 margin and held on for a 31-26 victory over the Pioneer Football League powerhouse. Not only was it the Dukes' 3rd victory in a row, but it was the 3rd consecutive game that A.J. Hines recorded a rushing touchdown. Hines' rushing ability aside, this Saturday's game will likely feature plenty of passing. A quick look at Hawaii's stat sheet, and the passing numbers just pop off the page. The Rainbow Warriors starting quarterback has 15 touchdown passes and no interceptions this season. As a team, Hawaii's averaging more than 10.5 yards per pass attempt. Now, Duquesne can certainly throw it around the yard as well. FAU transfer Daniel Parr has settled in nicely to the starting quarterback position. He leads the Northeast Conference with his 9.25 yards per pass average. He eclipsed the 300-yard mark in the win over Dayton, frequently hooking up with receiver Nahari Crawford. The senior had 11 receptions for 223 yards in the victory. I'm pretty certain that Duquesne head coach Jerry Schmidt would sign up for that stat line again this week in Hawaii. You can watch this one on Spectrum Sports. Now it's on to Northeast Conference play. First, Bryant will kick it off against Robert Morris at 1 p.m. at Burns Stadium in Smithfield, Rhode Island, in the NEC's featured game of the week on ESPN3. The start of a new conference season means the start of a new NEC on ESPN3 schedule. We're scheduled to deliver 8 exclusive telecasts via the Watch ESPN app, and this is number 1. It'll be Bryant and Robert Morris. The NEC's 2 newest head coaches will go at it in this one. For Bryant, head coach James Perry, in his second year in Smithfield, an offensive-minded head coach who has the play fast, up-tempo mentality. He'll put his Bulldogs up against the Robert Morris Colonials and first-year head coach Bernard Clark Jr. Clark, a former linebacker for the Miami Hurricanes, brings a lot of defensive experience to Moon Township. Prior to being named RMU head coach, he served as the defensive coordinator at CAA member Albany. It'll be interesting to see what happens when these 2 contrasting styles meet on the field Saturday. For starters, here's what Bryant head coach James Perry is expecting to see from Clark's Colonials.
What's very, very obvious when you watch film is there's a new energy there. He's done a very good job bringing some physicality to the team, and it's going to be a great challenge. So we'll take those first 3 games of film and put it onto the field tomorrow, and I'm sure the guys at Bryant will be pumped to practice.
Something else to keep an eye on in this matchup, the talent at receiver. Robert Morris certainly has some. Veteran Tim Vecchio had 3 catches for 52 yards at national number 2 James Madison in week 3. Then there's Robert Morris tight end Matthew Gonzalez, more than 20 yards per reception. If you remember, we featured him in the Stock Rising segment in last week's show. Flip it over to the Bryant side. Gene Constant has been doing big things thus far for the Bulldogs. And, of course, the man throwing him the football, Price Wilson, led the league in passing last year. He put up a big number in the Week 3 win over Marist. But despite Bryant's passing prowess, head coach James Perry knows it's important to run the ball effectively.
In the run game, on the flip side of that, you can advance the football at a much higher efficiency rate. So, to play fast, we want to spread the field, be explosive, do all the things that we do as a unit. But, to force the efficiency level, the more you can run the football, the more efficient you'll be, and that helps us a great deal.
And now for our final matchup on the Week 4 docket. You can watch this one right here live on NEC Front Row as Sacred Heart visits Grimes Hill to face the Wagner Seahawks. Wagner comes off back-to-back road games Last week, they were out in Bozeman, Montana. The week before, they were in the Carrier Dome taking on ACC member Syracuse. On the other side, after defeating Patriot League teams in each of the first 2 weeks of the season, Sacred Heart was on a bye in week 3. It wasn't exactly a week off for the Pioneers, as Mark Nofri and his staff spent plenty of time preparing for the Seahawks.
This week we had talked to the kids about it's not a week off, it's a week to prepare, work on the things that we need to work on to make sure we're ready for Wagner. It's a conference opponent. We've had 2 weeks to prepare for them. They're very good on defense. I think they're probably one of the best defenses in the NEC.
Now, if you're wondering how Sacred Heart got to 2-0 on the season, there are a number of reasons, but the one that's clear as can be is defense, defense, defense. The Pioneers have allowed only 1 offensive touchdown over the season's first 2 games, and they are limiting opponents to a measly 3.5 yards per play. They'll try to continue that success on Grimes Hill, but they'll have to do so against one of the nation's most feared running backs. Wagner's Ryan Folse leads the conference in yardage, 499 yards in 3 games this season. That's 3rd overall in the FCS. Last week at Montana State, he went bonkers. 181 rush yards, tack on another 70 receiving, and that's 251 yards from scrimmage for Ryan Folse. And you better believe that Ryan Folse has been on the mind of Mark Nofri and his Sacred Heart coaching staff.
And they probably have the best running back in all of FCS. So we're going to have our hands full, and this will be a good test for us, measure and stick and see where we're at, and if we're able to answer the bell and see where we're at as a football team when you're going to play a conference opponent this early in the season on the road against a very good defense and probably the best running back in all FCS.
One quick note before we close out the opening drive. The second leading rusher in the NEC right now is Sacred Heart's Jordan Meacham. We'll have much more on him later in the show. Wagner, Sacred Heart, Grimes Hill, NEC opener, Saturday evening on Front Row. Let's check in on the NEC stock market. We'll see whose value is on the way up. I alluded to Bryant's potency passing the football earlier in the show, and it certainly can't hurt to have an emerging target in redshirt freshman Shelton McNeil. The rookie receiver made 2 catches in the season opener against New Haven. Then at Stony Brook, 6 catches for 45 yards. And then against Marist, his best performance yet. McNeil with 106 all-purpose yards, 4 receptions for 81 yards receiving, a 62-yard touchdown catch that gave Bryant some much-needed insurance in the 37-27 victory. The Bryant offense already had plenty of weaponry, and now you can throw Shelton McNeil into that mix. The rookie receiver stock is on the way up. If you'll excuse me, I'm calling my Twitter timeout. Now, you heard what Sacred Heart head coach Mark Nofri thinks about Ryan Folse in our opening drive. And as it turns out, he's not alone. Skyline Sports Montana was rather impressed with Folse's performance in Week 3 at Montana State. Going up against the Bobcats of the Big Sky, Folse was as advertised. 181 rush yards, and that boosts him up to 7.6 yards per carry this year. The folks at Skyline Sports Montana are tweeting what we already knew. Wagner running back Ryan Folse is the real deal. Blue 42, Blue 42, Omaha, Omaha, it's the NEC Audible. I promised that we'd talk more about Sacred Heart's run game and running back Jordan Meacham, and now I'm going to deliver on that promise. Meacham, back-to-back 100-yard games to kick off his senior season. He went for 178 yards in the Week 2 win over Bucknell. He's averaging 6.9 yards per carry. That's second in the NEC, only to Ryan Fultz. And Meacham isn't the only Pioneer piling up yardage on the ground. Quarterback Kevin Duke is fifth on the NEC rushing leaderboard. He's averaging 6.1 yards per tote. But as Mark Nofri noted, there's a lot more to this success than just the rushing ability of Meacham and Duke. It starts with the big boys up front.
Well, it goes back to, being up front. I think you win ball games on the offensive and defensive line if you can establish the ground game and you do a great job running the ball. It opens up the passing attack. But those guys up front did a great job. Coach Gunny Smith has worked with that offensive line now for past 3 years, and he's done a great job. And Coach Gardner calling the game. We try and establish the run. I mean, that's one of our strengths is our running back position, and we got Nakeem Lewis and Andrew Starr returning that were starters last year, and we believe that if you can run the ball and establish the ground game, then it opens up a lot of different things for you.
That's amazing, bruh. What has me in a state of amazement this week? Sacred Heart's defensive numbers. They're some of the best in the FCS right now. The Pioneers rank third overall in passing defense efficiency. They're fourth in the nation when it comes to third down defense, limiting opponents to a 19% conversion rate on third down. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, they've allowed only one offensive touchdown through 2 games. Sacred Heart's defense ranked amongst FCS top 5 leaders in numerous categories. Now, stats amazing. And we're not done just yet here on the Week 4 edition of the Whole 9 Yards. I got some more knowledge to drop, and I'll do it in our Did You Know segment. Did you know there are only 6 FCS athletes with at least 5 receiving touchdowns thus far this season, and 2 of those men compete right here in the Northeast Conference. Gene Constant of Bryant, 5 receiving touchdowns. Nahari Crawford of Duquesne, he has 5 as well. Now, you may remember that Crawford led the entire FCS with 15 regular season receiving touchdowns in 2017. Both he and Constant are on pace to match or beat that mark this year. And just a heads up, if you're wondering, the NEC single season record for receiving touchdowns, it's 16. It was done twice. Once by Sacred Heart's Tyler Doobie, and then a few years earlier by Duquesne's Connor Dixon. Yes, it's still early, but that record may be in jeopardy as Gene Constant and Nahari Crawford have been 2 of the top performers in Division I FCS during the season's first month. I hope you enjoyed our action-packed show. 3 exciting non-league matchups, 2 conference games to kick off the NEC slate. We'll have our featured game of the week on ESPN3 at 1 p.m. Then remember to flip to Front Row in the evening for our second conference game of the day. All indications say this will be a fun one. Go out and enjoy Week 4 of Northeast Conference football. For NEC Front Row, I'm Ralph Ventre. Thanks for watching.